Hello and welcome to this episode of the Sticky Note Marketing Show. I am your host, Mary Zarnecki, and today I'm excited to introduce you to my guest expert, Ashley DiBiase. She is the founder of Dash Social, which is a content marketing agency specializing in social media. And we are getting into a very interesting topic, a topic both Ashley and I hear a lot of questions about from both of our communities. And that's about how to actually tap into your executives, your C-suites, your founders' personal brands to drive awareness of your company, of your initiatives, your products and services on LinkedIn. And we're going to be digging into some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to leveraging that executive or founder's brand on LinkedIn. So welcome, Ashley. So happy to have you here on the show.
I'm so happy to be here, Mary. Thank you so much.
Now, I know there are going to be some people watching and listening today that already know you, that cannot wait to hear more from you, but there may be people meeting you for the first time. So, for those just getting to know you, can you tell us a little bit about who you work with and the problems that you help solve for them?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, my company is Dash of Social, which, as of the time of this recording, we're actually celebrating our ninth anniversary, which is crazy to think about how fast the years go. But we specialize in content marketing for small to medium sized businesses and tech startups. So, we do everything from organic social media management to blog content, email marketing, and marketing strategy. Clients typically hire us because they don't have the time or resources to be able to manage something like social media in-house, but they know how incredibly important it is to make sure that they have that active and engaged online presence. So we're here to support them and provide what I call an all-inclusive service to be able to handle everything from strategy to content, community management, and analytics reports, and ensure that they're really building their brand awareness and establishing thought leadership in their industry.
Amazing. And I know that you do really great work, and we're going to be pulling some of those amazing gold nuggets out of your brain today to share with our listeners. I'd love to start by digging in. I know that both of you and I work with tech founders, founder-led brands, and people that have executives that may have started to build a personal brand or a presence on LinkedIn. But I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about some of those flags, like those, I don't want to say red flags, but maybe opportunity flags that a team could be looking for when it's time to actually start to leverage that presence of the executive or of the founder more strongly on social or on LinkedIn. What should brands be saying to themselves? Oh, this is an opportunity for us. When does that opportunity really come up for a lot of the people you're working with?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I would say, especially when an executive joins a startup, if they've come from somewhere else, that is a huge opportunity to make sure that's rebranded on their LinkedIn. They've likely already spent the past few years or even past several years building up their LinkedIn connections. And now it's important that their connections and their network know what they're doing next in their career. And they're also able to leverage their network that's likely very warm and very engaged to then amplify the work that you're doing at your startup or at your company. So that's a really big thing. I think any person at any company, whether you're an executive or not, you can brand your LinkedIn profile to align with your company branding. So a lot of companies do a really good job of creating branded LinkedIn covers for all of their employees to use on their profiles, or even providing copy that they can talk about it for the work that they're doing at their company that they can share in their experience section, being able to highlight and amplify any accomplishments or achievements that the company or startup has done, like raising a round or getting featured in a really prominent publication. Being able to tap into these different profiles is huge because it automatically expands your reach and it gives you the opportunity to get in front of people that you may not have been put in front of otherwise.
I love that because these key opportunity moments pop up for so many different organizations, but sometimes they just go by without being taken advantage of. I know, at least when I'm talking to some of the clients I work with that are at these inflection points, right? They're bringing in new executives or they're going after new markets or they're expanding their reach in some way. There's this opportunity to really tell the story from the founder, tell the stories behind those executives. Where do you see teams struggle with actually making it an intentional part of their marketing strategy as opposed to just dealing with it ad hoc?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to time, right? Especially as founders, there's only so much time that you have in the day. And it's crucial to be prioritizing those revenue generating activities or business development activities. And more often than not, brands and companies don't always see LinkedIn as that as that business development or revenue generating activity. It can lead to it, but it may not be that priority right now. And so I think that's likely the reason why companies don't do it enough or don't do it yet, is because they need to figure out where to prioritize their time and their resources. And so they just end up taking a backseat with it and focus on the company initiatives for now. But you get the best results when you're able to marry those two buckets together, both the personal profile and the corporate page, to be able to make a bigger impact.
Right. So there may be a team internally keeping the content flowing and curating the information that's going on the company page. How can teams, or how do you work with your clients to make it more time sensitive for the founders and executives, like you said, that do not have a lot of time to be doing this in addition to
Yeah.
everything else they're managing?
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually working on that right now with a fintech startup where they do have their marketing team managing the startups page. But to your point, there's the CEO and the CRO who do need an active LinkedIn presence as well. And that's where I've been able to step in. And so I think being able to bring in any outsider who can support you with this, who can take a backseat and say, what are the really great things that are happening about this startup right now that the team itself might be immune to, might not see it as interesting, which outsiders would be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Why aren't you talking about it enough? So being able to bring in an outsider really helps to amplify that message. But an outsider can also think about all these different topics, run through questions, get your responses on it, and all of that can be turned into content. So in addition to getting like those thought leadership pieces that I always love recommending, you can also take the company news like new product features or new partnerships, raising a round, hiring a new executive, whatever it might be, and share that on your own LinkedIn as well to ensure that it gets seen by more people.
No, it's so funny. I'm just taking a note because hopefully all of you guys listening and watching to this have your sticky notes out, my rules. So I'm taking a note for myself because I work with a couple of different teams right now. And a lot of what I'm working with the teams on is positioning and storytelling and creating a more audience-centric approach to their marketing. But what you said there about having these stories, what you think isn't interesting from an outsider's perspective, bringing me in actually is a benefit because I can tell you what your audience is probably going to react to. But this is interesting to us. We do want to see the behind the scenes. We do want to hear the story of how you came up with this idea or something that's happened internally recently that you actually may not think is worth sharing. But to your audience, this is exactly what they want to tap into. Do you have any stories of where you've had that with clients where maybe you've really had to encourage them to bring some content or some story forward that maybe they didn't value on their own?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in showing the behind the scenes, which I think is a little bit generic, but people are often like, why would a potential client or customer want to see what my day to day is? That it doesn't really make any sense. It's boring. I just sit at my desk. But people really love to see the behind the scenes of how you work and who you work with. And so being able to show your processes or product updates or whatever it might be, I think really helps to build that know and trust factor. And at the end of the day, humans are doing business with humans. And so once people feel like they know you, like you, and trust you, that's when they're ready to give you their money. And so it's really important to be able to set that foundation and have those building blocks to work from so that you can end up having bigger success and being able to get more clients or get more customers or get more users out of it from there. And so I think just showing people that, like, yes, the work that you do is really interesting, it is really important. You just don't think it is because you're too close to it, I think is something that we see all the time.
And it's interesting too, because I know in my storytelling work with founder-led teams, we definitely see the impact, especially in the tech space or any very technical features, functionality specific products and service area, that stories do make a difference. It does help
Mm-hmm.
connect with the audience. But based on your expertise, especially when we're talking about social and LinkedIn, we don't have TV commercial length time to tell stories. How do you effectively help your clients tell a good, compelling, captivating story, but in the context and in the platform constraints?
Yeah, I think firstly you need to start with a good hook. That's like the most important thing because you need to have that one or two sentences that'll make people do what I call stop the scroll, right? So they're scrolling through on their phone and they're like, whoa, this sentence spoke to me. I need to read more of it. I think it's really important to have that hook right off the bat. also correlating with it a nice visual. I think being able to have some type of video, or I think some type of like graphic that resonates and also relates to the content is really important, because that is one of the things that can stop the scroll as well. But you
Mhm.
want to first start off with that hook that will get people drawn in. I think you also want to start by laying out the landscape. So usually anytime I create some type of content, it's usually talking about outlining a problem, talking about the work that was done to fix that problem, and then the solution or outcome that came from that. And I think being able to tie those pieces together within that story frame will help to relate to people and also make them realize, okay, maybe I need this service or product myself. So that's one thing I always recommend, is having a strong hook, going into a problem that perhaps a client or customer was experiencing, going into the work that they did or the option they chose to help resolve that problem, and then wrapping it up with the results. Like, what was the positive impact that came from this work, and show the social proof. And then that way, when people are reading that content, they're already ready, if they're having a similar problem, to work with you and give you their money.
And I love that you highlighted the fact that it's not just about telling the result, but actually comparing that to the before picture, that problem that they were facing. I know as a consumer myself, I often will be more likely to engage in content where they really highlight the problem because I'm in the problem now. I can see myself in that. Whereas
Yes,
sometimes the
absolutely.
solution almost just feels too far away.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Now, I want to pull on one thing that you mentioned about really building not just the company's profile page on LinkedIn, but then really thinking about the executives, individual pages, their profiles, their content that's coming forward. Have you ever bumped into a founder or an executive that maybe was a little bit shy? Now, I know that's not the typical founder, but especially you and I both work in the tech space. Sometimes the founders come from more of an engineering or technical backgrounds and aren't necessarily a sales type mindset. How do you help people get over that? Or what have you seen work for people that you have helped?
Yeah, a lot of it, people usually are very hesitant about taking photos or videos of themselves, and they're very worried about coming across as cringe. And I always tell them, I'm like, you are actually the only person who thinks that. Like, people who are seeing the content, whether it's a photo or watching the video, doesn't actually think you are cringe, because everyone else is doing it too realistically. So I think it comes to like almost an internal conflict. And I will say that it seems like having someone else who's actually doing it for you tends to take that awkward factor off of it. Like, it makes them feel a little bit easier about doing it. I think if they were to have to do it themselves, that's what would feel a little bit overwhelming. So I'd say that's one thing. And then I'd also say too, just dipping your toes in the water is something that really helps too, especially if the executive or founder rarely post on LinkedIn to begin with. You don't want to go full force 5 posts a week if you go from like 0 to 100. So I always say, like, starting small, maybe 1 post per week, maybe a video of yourself every few weeks. And then once you feel more comfortable with it and also have the capacity to ramp up your content, then you can go from there. But going in full force, I think definitely, understandably, puts those guards up and provides a little bit of hesitancy. But taking it one step at a time and being able to get your feet wet, I think, can really provide a better outcome overall.
I love that. Yeah, one step at a time. It doesn't have to be this huge radical change overnight. So,
Oh, yeah, exactly. And there's so many people who are posting stuff on LinkedIn that make you wonder, should this really be on LinkedIn? Where it seems like might not be the place. So I always tell people that will automatically make you feel better. Like, you're knowing that you're sticking really to relevant content here. So whatever, everything you're providing is valuable. And I think that's an important thing to remember too, is that what you're doing is providing value to someone or helping someone. So if you can help just one person with your post that you created, then it's totally worth it.
I'm interested to dig in now. I know I may be asking you to reveal some insider secrets here, but one thing you just mentioned about does this really belong in this platform or not brought up in my brain the question of is there anything that is a little bit nuanced? So, for example, things that you tell your clients are what's working on, say, LinkedIn, that, oh, you should absolutely do this on LinkedIn, that's totally working on LinkedIn, but please do not do this on Instagram or X. Is there anything like that you could highlight for our listeners today where actually do this on this platform, but absolutely don't do that over here?
That's an interesting thing. I would say what I'm thinking off the top of my head is that being able to come up with like different content, I'd say, for both platforms. One of the things that worked on LinkedIn, I'd say, is probably hot takes that I don't know always transfers over well on something like Instagram or Facebook, so to say. I think people on LinkedIn are a little bit off the cuff, and that's the thing, because that makes them engage. The algorithm favors engagement, and so I think being able to have more tongue-in-cheek type of commentary is something that we often see on LinkedIn, but it might not translate well over on something like Instagram or Facebook that tend to be more consumer-facing platforms. So that's one thing I'd say that you could consider. But if it's also not in your personality or your voice to do something that's like a hot take or tongue-in-cheek type of stuff, don't force it. I think sometimes people fall into a certain like groove of wanting to do just what's performing well, but it doesn't actually align with who they are or what their voice is. They just do it for the likes ultimately. So I'd say stay true to what you do, but don't be afraid to also like toe the line a bit with some different things you can test the waters with. Hopefully that made sense.
Absolutely. And a great reminder too, right? Take advantage of what's working on the platform, but do it through the filter of, is this really aligned with our company's brand, with my personal
Mm-hmm.
brand, or is this going to feel forced and awkward? Because
Exactly.
that'll come through.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And business consumers will be able to notice that, right? If they're reading content from a brand that they closely follow and know, and they see something that's a little bit out of line than what they normally see, that might make them have like their hand up a bit and make them make it a little bit hesitant where it's okay, wait a second, this is different than what I'm used to seeing. It might not necessarily harm your credibility, but just something you want to be aware of. You don't want to in any way reduce the trust that you've worked so hard to build.
Absolutely. Even at a subconscious level, that something just feels off about this content. 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. I have one more question for you. Thank you so much, by the way, for all of this. I hope everyone has a very full sticky note coming out of this so far. But I know there may be some people listening who are not the founder or executive themselves, but they're totally on board with this. They're in their brain saying, Ashley is totally right. We need to be doing this. But they're the one who's now going to have to go advocate for taking this initiative or building this program or bringing even someone in like you. What would you say to someone who is now in this role where they're on board with it, but they now have to advocate for it internally? Do you have any tips for someone like that?
Oh, yeah. I would say look at the executive or founders connections, right? Especially if they're someone who, if the founder is someone who is going to a lot of industry events or speaking at conferences or building a bunch of new contacts. Like this person within the company can say, listen, Ashley, like you've spent so much time building up your network, and now these people are just sitting there seeing no content from you. And you've been able to build these personal relationships, and they can be able to provide great benefits to our brand, but they don't even know what we're doing or what we're working on right now because you're just having a barren desert with your LinkedIn presence. So being able to take advantage of the connections and of the relationships you've spent so much time in years and money potentially building is huge for being able to drive our brand forward. I'd say that's really where it starts, especially too, if the founder is someone who is looking to get into more speaking gigs, which a lot are. The event organizers are going to be looking at the executive or founder's LinkedIn. If it's bare or if it's outdated or if it's just not really well thought out or not intentional, that could potentially harm their chances of getting selected to be a speaker. So that's one of the biggest reasons why it's crucial to invest time and money into building up that solid personal brand, because it sets you in a really good position to get new opportunities in the future.
I would definitely echo that. As someone who does a lot of keynote speaking, I've heard from plenty of event organizers that have said, oh, yeah, I loved your pitch, but when I went and looked you up on LinkedIn, what really convinced me was you highlighted this speaking engagement you did or this thought leadership. So, yes, a lot of the founders that would like to be doing more of that. I liked what you said. Make sure it's not a barren desert.
Yeah, exactly. And that reminds me of something that I just said to a colleague the other day is like having an up to date LinkedIn, honestly, right now is the bare minimum. Like just having your experience listed and what you worked on most recently is the bare minimum. Now you need to take it a step up and be able to have consistent posts that you're publishing each week to draw people in. So I think it's a good reminder to just think about what you want to get out of your LinkedIn and then make sure that whatever you're doing on it is bringing you closer to reaching those goals.
So making sure it's up to date, consistent, and right connected to where you want your business to be going. So
Absolutely.
amazing. Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for being here, for sharing your expertise and wisdom with our audience here. I know there are lots of questions that people are going to have and want to follow up with you. I know we're going to include all of your links and information wherever anyone is watching or listening to this. But if you would direct someone to one place to follow up with you, what would you say the best place to connect with you online is?
I would say my website, which is dashofsocial.com. In the footer, you'll find all of my social media links from there, but I'm probably the most active on LinkedIn. So come find me there under Ashley DiBiase.
Amazing, terrific. Please definitely take advantage of connecting with Ashley and follow up with her after this episode. Any parting thoughts to inspire our listeners today, Ashley?
I would say don't wait, get started. I think the longer you wait, the longer you're going to set yourself back with being able to work back up with your content in whatever form of marketing you're doing. So there's the best time to start is now.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks for being our guest today.
Thanks for having me, Mary.
Amazing. And thank you all of you who are listening and watching this episode for joining us on the Sticky Note Marketing Show. If you have found value in this episode, if you want to hear more from us, make sure you like, share, connect, ring the bell wherever you are watching or listening from so that you get notified about our next episode and our next guest expert. So I thank you again for joining us and look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Sticky Note Marketing Show.